So welcome to the session this morning. My name is Greg Fleming. I'm with Air Liquide and the Venture Capital Unit of Air Liquide. So what I would suggest we do is first I'll let the panel members introduce themselves, and then perhaps we will let them talk about a number of the aspects of how they work with startup companies out in the community. So we can start at the other end.
Good morning. I'm Bill Welch with Abbott Ventures. We are obviously part of Abbott Laboratories. Our group was founded about 7 years ago with the initial intention of doing minority investments in startups and both helping support the divisions of Abbott and looking at new white spaces. Over the last several years, that mandate has evolved into something much broader. 6 months ago, we created the Ventures Division, and within that division is our investment group still, but also some early stage businesses that we've acquired over the last 18 months or so. That would include Abbott Electrophysiology and the Tendyne mitral valve replacement unit. Leading that effort is John Capek, who used to run all of Abbott's Medtech device businesses, vascular, AMO, diabetes care. So we're very fortunate to have him leading our strategic effort. And our mandate too has broadened to going from just minority investments to structured transactions, M&A work, things like that. So we're very excited about being part of a very, hopefully, robust growth engine for Abbott in the future. Myself, I have spent my first 15 years in banking. I ran an industry-based media and telecom practice for ABN AMRO and Rabobank. Then I went off into the startup world, but in food ingredients. Eventually sold that to Cargill. And then came to Abbott, so still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. So.
My name's Andrew Jay. I'm with Siemens Venture Capital. I run the healthcare venture investing effort. I've been there for 13 years. Our interests are primarily medical imaging and lab-based diagnostics.
So Al Loretano from Becton Dickinson. I work at the company's Corporate Innovation Center in North Carolina. We look at new early stage opportunities that are typically outside the company's home court, maybe with a longer time horizon than typically our business units would be looking at new opportunities. I'm responsible these days for our global external innovation activities, and that includes relationships with accelerators, incubators, and other strategic partners to help us develop either internal or external innovation projects. So the example of an internal one is we now have an office on the campus of Singularity University in Mountain View where we're doing, say, entrepreneurship, bringing in teams of BD folks to man startups that we're basically coming up, developing to meet the needs of the company. We used to have a formal venture fund years ago. We do not have a venture fund today. We are very active in the early stage startup community. We are purely strategic in nature. We are not looking for financial returns. That's why we moved away from VC investing. We will invest if that needs to be, but we have a number of other transactional ways to engage with startups. One of our more popular models right now is partnering with accelerators around the world, selecting startups within those programs, and then providing a suite of in-kind services, including a cash grant. That would include mentors from our organization, subject matter experts, to really help these companies on their journey, as well as help teach us maybe if these are good opportunities for the future and for Becton Dickinson.
And again, my name is Greg Fleming with Air Liquide. So I'm in the corporate ventures group of Air Liquide. Many people do not realize, I guess, that our focus in healthcare is that we serve more than 1 million patients in the home for various chronic diseases in Europe. We're looking to expand the number of treatments that we offer. We're also looking to expand geographically into other countries around the world. We formed Aliad approximately 2.5 years ago. We invest in technologies even beyond healthcare, but healthcare is a strong part of our portfolio, and I'm I guess, the lone representative in the U.S. at this time. So, with that introduction, one of the things that Bill started to touch on, but I'll let he and other panelists comment on, and that is if they can provide some perspective on what is the current landscape as far as they see in terms of startups and investing in the healthcare arena.
Well, we see it as a very great opportunity for folks like Abbott. Obviously, with a bit of a dearth of venture capital over the last couple of years, it provides strategics a little broader opportunity to partner with companies earlier on, get to know management, get to know the teams, and really get a sense as to whether or not just the product looks good on paper, but whether the team and the culture of the team and the expertise of the team will fit well within Abbott. We've been able to, like I say, partner earlier, also to achieve some soft rights and deals, whereas 5-6 years ago that kind of model wasn't acceptable in the marketplace. And because of that, we've been able to, with more certainty, bring opportunities to fruition. Similar to what the other panelists have said, we purely take a strategic view. We're not there to throw money away, but financial returns are not valued in terms of either our individual remuneration or any other performance measures. Our job is to create product opportunities for Abbott, and so that's again why this new venture division was created in the first place, and the idea is to partner with good opportunities, hopefully big opportunities, and those which will hopefully someday move the needle at Abbott. But we view this as a good a time as any from a strategic perspective, at least in the last decade or so.
Well, I guess I'm unique here in that we look at the venture capital activity as being not only something that generates strategic returns, but also financial returns. And actually, a portion of the assets we invest in any company come from the balance sheet of the financial unit, who's got the agenda of having financial returns. So that's one fundamental difference from other people. We also, though, the strategic element of our organization is driven heavily by the business units. And that no matter how much I like an investment financially, if I don't have the support of the business unit, it's not going to happen. We need that endorsement. We don't typically ask for any rights other than the right of information, and that if we help build the company, then we feel we should have to be informed if the company goes up for sale. It's in terms of the market today, I think the market today is more difficult, obviously, than it was 5 or 6 years ago when pretty much everything got funded. I think nowadays there's less money. There's both fewer companies getting funded and less out there, but there's some interesting dynamics going on in the marketplace.
So to address the landscape issue, we're doing about probably 7-8 accelerator programs globally each year, and I'm continually kind of impressed by the number of new companies that just keep popping up out there that are looking for, they're looking to develop, and the stage of these companies. And the other amazing thing about them is, at least for me, who comes from a traditional pharma and biotech and life science background, is that these are all coming from different, traditionally different technologies areas with all the stuff going on in digital health. And many of these people don't even know you know, the names of the folks like Becton Dickinson and probably some of the other companies here, they don't think about us in the way when they're developing their product or as a potential partner. But they keep coming. They're relentless, and so I mean, every time we put out a call, there's, again, depending upon the program, there's another 50, 100, 200 applicants coming at us, looking to join an accelerator, looking for potential mentorship opportunities. So I certainly don't think there's any lack of enthusiasm out there in the entrepreneurial community. That's why we try to work globally, because different stuff springs up from different pockets. But I think the one thing is clear, was mentioned before, the lack of traditional venture capital to fund these companies and bring them beyond is a challenge for them. So I don't know who's going to be funding it. But the one thing I will say, that a lot of these accelerator programs aren't just kind of sponsored by organizations like Becton Dickinson, but by many of the healthcare providers and payers looking for enterprise solutions for the challenges of healthcare delivery. So I think some of them aren't exactly sure what they're looking for, but they know new stuff needs to come into the system, and there's a lot of new people out there now willing to give it a shot to create solutions.
So we have a new panelist that's just joined us. Feel free to introduce yourself and your organization, and any comments you want to offer about the current landscape that you see.
Sure. So I'm Charles Bridges, Vice President of Medical Devices for Johnson & Johnson, and I'm designated as the cardiovascular therapeutic area expert for the medical device business. So external innovation in the device space, specifically targeted towards cardiovascular, is my specialty area within Johnson & Johnson. My background prior to that is I'm a board-certified cardiac surgeon, practiced for 20 years, former full professor at Penn, NIH-funded investigator. So in terms of the landscape, I think, you know, on the device side, it's challenging, and I think that's one of the things that Johnson & Johnson has recognized, both in Johnson & Johnson innovation broadly, is attempting to address this unmet need, both in the pharma space and biotech space, but more recently in the device space. And I just joined Johnson & Johnson 6 months ago. As part of that effort is to integrate the device business into our innovation platform, which includes incubators in what we call J-Labs. It includes innovation centers in Boston, San Francisco, Shanghai, and London, and includes our venture arm, Johnson & Johnson Development Corporation, and our business development arm, which typically does our larger scale investments, mergers, acquisitions, and that kind of thing. So, but specifically on the early stage side, it's challenging. I mean, how do you get that initial capital? How do you get out of the university, which is the environment I came from, the technology transfer office? How do you get the IP out of the tech transfer office and into the real world? And that's quite challenging. I'm sure you've heard the term the valley of death between ideation to commercialization. A lot of stuff dies along the way that shouldn't die. And so I think Johnson & Johnson is particularly oriented towards addressing that problem. So early stage things, which is not many big companies, if you contract some of the competitors in the medical device space, you say, I've got this great idea, I've got a patent, we're starting a company, they're going to want to see more evidence that you're going to be able to move this forward. And so our innovation center model is designed to take things that are even that early, that are proof of concept. All we ask is that you have some IP. And then obviously a team and so forth is critical. But helping to take things from that early stage and move them. Now obviously most of those aren't going to be successful. But obviously it's a numbers game, and if you get in early, you can get in for less, a lower investment on our part. But if as an inventor, if you don't have some support, you have a 0% chance of success. So at least you can do significantly better than zero with the kind of assistance you can get from some companies. I know Johnson & Johnson is one of them, and I'm sure some of the other folks on the panel can talk about how they are addressing this problem as well.
Thank you. So one of the other questions, I guess, perhaps I could ask some of you to speak about is how do companies, what should companies be doing to be on your radar screen? And what are the criteria that you are looking for primarily in the companies that you're trying to work with? Maybe we start with Al.
Okay. So I'm in a fortunate position that if you ever look at any of the mailboxes on BD's website about new product ideas, they all come to me. So, and that's for the whole corporation, 50 countries, 45,000 associates. So I see a lot, and I think what we're trying to do is communicate through meetings like this and other events the kinds of areas we're interested in, so we're getting, when people are contacting us, there's a better likelihood that it might be something of interest, as opposed to many, many things that we see or just typically come from out of the blue. But I think, you know, if you're looking at approaching us, you should get an understanding of what are the areas we're looking for. I will say traditionally the things that are early stage will not necessarily be obvious fits with what you're looking, with what you'll find on our website, with what our business is. I like to say that, you know, the group that I'm working with from corporate innovation, we're not looking for the next needle or the sharper needle, but we're looking how to make our medical devices much smarter than they are. We make high volume, high quality, disposable devices in the billions, which are very cost sensitive. How can we make those more valuable to the healthcare system? How can we take the instruments that we produce and take that data and make our customers smarter? How can we provide healthcare analytics associated with those? And the other space that we're looking to move into more actively is genomics. So those are three initial areas of the areas that we're looking at. But I'm always willing, free to take 30 seconds to see the stuff that comes in off the website and review. But ultimately, the best way to get our attention is to work with us through one of the accelerators that we're currently partnered with. You know, apply to that, and it'll be determined very quickly or not whether you're a good match for our interests. And if so, you can expect support in the form of a grant, mentor, access to subject matter experts. Really get to know us, and we really get to know you during that 3 to 6 month accelerator process. So that's kind of the way we like to engage. We'll do it all, but I'm just saying our more successful relationships have been through the accelerator model these days.
I'll just build on Al's comment about I'm willing to take 30 seconds. As you think about people in our roles, we have a tremendous amount of ideas coming at us from different places. And so as you think about how you reach into us, you know, you've got to quickly, 4 or 5 bullet points explaining what you do, and we can fairly quickly put it into a couple buckets. Not relevant, so for example, I get drug ideas, we don't do drugs. So that I can quickly triage those out. Here's our product, here's what we do. That's very important because our time is precious and we're overwhelmed. And if it becomes too complicated to quickly get to it, then it becomes this is work to figure out, is there something here, and then if I get involved with this group, there's going to be work to figure out from there. I just don't have the time. And so to that end, one of the things I'd tell people is send me a couple page PowerPoint, have a good website. I mean, if I'm going to go look at your company, I should very quickly be able to find out what you do and how. Because 70 to 80% of people, when they're thinking about a company, the first thing they do is check out the website. So part of it is how you reach out and how you present. That becomes very important to the people on the other side in terms of our ability to triage and be responsive the way we want to be.
Yeah, and I think furthering that theme, if you present your company in a way that strategically would fit with someone like Abbott, and hopefully you can think about your company along the same lines, whether it's a product that might fit into an existing call point that we might have, or a large opportunity like those that I described earlier. We do have an interest, obviously, of growing all of our businesses. The venture division, though, is looking more at the smaller, at least products initially, but large opportunities. As I mentioned before, we have this new electrophysiology business and a mitral replacement entity we bought last year, but things along structural heart, things along heart failure, you know, in those kind of spaces we're very, very interested in. But I think in terms of presenting your product, you need to help make it apparent to us how you see it fitting in, because if it's a relatively small opportunity with limited potential globally, it would probably likely have to fit within a current division for us to have an interest. But if it has, you know, large blockbuster type opportunities, it might be worthwhile for us to consider creating a new division around it.
So Johnson & Johnson, as everybody knows, is a very broad company. So we have, we're the largest healthcare corporate company in the world, which includes pharmaceutical, medical device, and consumer. When you add those three together, $75 billion in revenue. The reason for mentioning that is that there's not a whole lot of segments that we're not interested in. So rather than speaking from, you know, what we're interested in, it would probably be a shorter conversation to talk about what we're not interested in because of the breadth of the company. Given that, I would encourage you to think of us as a potential partner. What are we, regardless of what you're interested in within that broad space? And there's several different ways to get into the J&J partnering situation. One is through the innovation centers, which is new. It's only been there for 2 or 3 years. Innovation centers are typically looking for things that we're not ready to onboard into Johnson & Johnson. So things that are too early to become part of one of our core businesses. So core businesses included pharmaceutical business, which includes all the components of the pharmaceutical business that you would imagine, medical devices, which is cardiovascular, orthopedics, and global surgery. And then consumer, which is very broad within the consumer space. There's a couple of ways. One is the website, Johnson & Johnson Innovation. You go on the website, the only thing you need is you got to have some IP. You can present your case, it will get reviewed, and a decision will be made whether to move forward with it. But beyond that, there's the J-Labs operation, which again, just since 2012, it's an incubator, a series of incubators, about 150 companies right now, 2 locations in San Francisco, 1 in San Diego, new one coming online in Toronto, another one in Houston, Toronto in April, Houston in February of 2016. That's an opportunity. If you have a company and you want a place to park it and grow it, that's a great opportunity. No strings attached. Johnson & Johnson doesn't have right of first refusal, right of first negotiation. You basically pay rent for your space. You have access to millions of dollars of infrastructure. You have access to tremendous expertise that surrounds you both in the other companies that are in the environment and Johnson & Johnson as well. That's an option, depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for that, then this is a great way to partner with a company. And then if down the line it looks like a great match between you and Johnson & Johnson, then you can have those discussions, but again, there are no strings attached. If you're very early, if you're in a university, you're a professor, you've got some great IP, you've got a great drug that you've developed, or IP for a drug that you've developed, or a device. Again, that's the kind of early stage investment, which is typically in the single digits, millions to even hundreds of thousands. That is often a good fit for our innovation centers. You can make direct contact with those of us who are in the innovation centers. We're always happy. We're not going to say, oh, well, you didn't send it through the website. You got to go through the website before we'll look at it. We're certainly willing. Things come to us through a variety of routes. So if you're very early stage, if you're looking for an equity investment, then our venture arm, Johnson & Johnson Development Corporation, Series A, Series B funding, you're looking for someone to assist you with that. in general, when we look at stuff, we're looking at the team, we're looking at the intellectual property, we want to know about the business model, and we want to know about the regulatory pathway. So, I mean, when you create a pitch deck, make sure it's got those key components, because I can't tell you how many really good ideas come along and say, well, what's the business model? Well, what's the regulatory pathway? That kind of thing. So make sure you check all those boxes before you send it, and make it relatively short and to the point. I mean, we'll take 20 minutes to look at something, and then try to make a fairly quick decision. It doesn't have to be an elevator pitch. It can be a little bit longer than that, but it has to hit those key elements, and those are really important issues for us to just make decisions.
And similar to that, I would just add, we face the same challenges in terms of time. Our focus is going to be around home health care and all of the things that could be involved in home health care, whether it's devices, whether it's IT solutions, etc. We as well you can make contact with a member of the Ventures team directly. There is a website connection into the Ventures team also. Eventually, though, the key issue, the key sort of challenge for us is at some point, we're going to be introducing you to members of one of our business units, and really that's the key trial in a sense, is if you can interact with them and you're speaking the same language as our business unit. I find quite often that that's sort of very much an acid test in a sense. If I can put members of a new company in the room with some of our key decision makers from our business units, and if the conversation goes quite well, that's usually a key sign that there is a basis for a close collaboration and a strategic relationship that can build with the company. That process can take some time. They often are going to need to ask a number of detailed questions about business model, etc. But to get our attention, to get focus on what you're doing, it's very important that you summarize for us the key differentiating factors that you bring, the team that's behind, and why the team is well suited to develop that key differentiating product that you're trying to develop. What's the business model? What kind of IP you have, and what kind of IP potential you might have, and then the regulatory process that you see going forward as well. And as others have said, it's surprising how many documents and summaries you get which do not adequately and shortly cover those aspects. And the more you can focus on covering those, it really does help a lot, and it speeds up the ability for us, because if you contact someone within the Ventures group, we're going to have to take that and go to someone else. And if we have something that's very, very well summarized, it's easier for us to catch the attention of our experts. And that's a critical issue for us, is trying to catch them, because as well, they're faced with so many different prospects. It's very difficult for them to focus on a topic.
And those internal people, we have relationships with them, and if you send them junk, if we send them junk, it comes back to haunt us. Well, I wasted a lot of time with that last one. And so they're sort of looking at us in terms of how much, they've got other jobs to do. They aren't just hanging out saying, well, what Andrew sent you today? No, they're kind of have other things. And so it's important that when we send whatever we get from you or what we ask for, that's easily efficient at that end too, because that's ongoing. They're an internal customer for us, and we need to maintain that relationship to keep them interested.
So the next topic is finally, if you're identified as a potential working partner, maybe would ask the panel maybe to talk a little bit about, in an ideal case, how do you work with startups? What are the ways you work with them?
Well, we typically like to engage in some kind of collaboration, demonstration project, where either we're working jointly or maybe we're funding a project that they would do to demonstrate the technology value in a certain application. But I mean, it's rare that we would go into anything deeper to begin with from either a more significant license or rights acquiring without some kind of demonstration project. Lately too, when we see something that we like that maybe we don't have the funding for, we're willing to co-write a grant application to maybe have that work done. And we've been doing a lot of that lately, getting outside funding to support some further development work to evaluate some technology. So, I mean, so that's typically the way we like to do is get started with some kind of research collaboration, and then ultimately that might lead to a license, or it might lead to an acquisition down the road. But that's typically the way that our company likes to engage. I think the evaluation of technology is basically started off within our R&D organization. And they like to see that the technology has legs, and then it will move through. And I do want to mention one thing before when I said about the new areas that we're interested in. That's not to say that BD's not interested in newer, sharper needles. For example, we're more than happy to take a look at those. And even those come to me all the time, but what I do is those get forwarded to one of our businesses. So I typically will look at the stuff that doesn't necessarily align with our existing businesses, stuff that comes in. I do get it to the appropriate business folks so they're aware of it, and then ultimately though, then it's their call whether they want to follow up on these things. So a lot of them that are unsolicited, they come in, they get acknowledged, everything gets acknowledged, but I can't promise people that they're going to get some kind of detailed analysis of why it was not a fit. That's why I only have 30 seconds.
Our group takes the more conventional approach of investments, licensing, or M&A work. We do, if we are an investor in the company, we will take an observational board seat. We will not take any sort of voting board seat. That's just company policy, and some strategics have different points of view on that, but that's Abbott's point of view. The ideal situation is to be a somewhat early investor, participate in 1 or 2 or 3 rounds, whatever it takes to create enough value that it is de-risked to a point, and proof of efficacy is to a point where it becomes an acquisition target. We'll do, like I said, licensing, we'll do options, we'll do just straight out acquisitions as well. But the ideal situation, as I said before, is to get to know the company by being a participant on the board, by help advising it to through its clinical strategies, through its regulatory strategies, help with IP, things like that, so that dead ends aren't created that have to be redone down the road if a large company comes in and needs more robust clinical data or whatever it might be. So, but that's the idea, is to take a collaborative approach up front, and then when those situations arise that they become attractive enough and de-risked enough, come in and know what others don't know about the company and have an advantage in that regard.
Okay, so Johnson & Johnson, as I mentioned, there's a number of different pathways, but let's talk about the innovation centers for one. That's the early stage, typically for drugs, things that are pre-phase 2A, and sometimes even pre-proof of concept in some cases. The idea is that there's a business unit that's interested, so typically it fits somewhere within our farm business for the farm business, and medical devices, it also fits somewhere within one of our business units if it is successful. But we're willing to take those risks early stage with things that are not quite ready for prime time. There's a number of different ways deals can be done. Sometimes, typically they're milestone driven. Typically Johnson & Johnson doesn't ask for, typically we ask for soft rights up front. And often there's cross-entity expertise transfer. you've got a great idea, but maybe you don't have facilities for stem cell manufacturing, but we do. So we're very happy to sort of synergistically benefit from our expertise and your expertise so that the sum is greater than, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts when we work together. When we make a deal, whoever's involved in the deal has a responsibility to that company to drive. It's not a matter of we made a deal, now we're done. It's we've made a deal, now we're going to work continuously with that company to see it through. Same thing's true in the venture arm, Johnson & Johnson Development Company. Often we'll have a board seat, not always. Often we'll have some rights, whether it's right of first negotiation, etc. But again, Johnson & Johnson is run by its credo. It's a goodwill relationship by and large. Go online, read our credo, that'll give you an idea of how Johnson & Johnson does business. They're a good partner, and they tend to work in good faith, is my experience, and I think that's very important.
Ludovic, I manage a venture capital firm based in Montreal, and we invested last year in a diagnostic company with a corporate, it's a strategic partner from Switzerland, and it's done very well, very strong partnership. We were very aligned on the timeline on investments and the fact that they were really looking at investments on the return. And so our question that we may have sometimes as a VC is how do you see on your side co-investments potentially with VCs? We sometimes have different time horizons and different philosophies, and so I'd like to hear maybe what's your point of view.
Sure, I'll start. VCs do have different timelines than strategics do, at least our Abbott perspective. We understand it takes a long time to get through the development cycle, and are willing to have money, in essence, sit dormant for many years in order to get a product. We also know how difficult creating a product is, and so, as I mentioned in my intro, we're not financially driven. And so time horizons are as long as it takes to get it done. Obviously, the longer it happens, the less time you have on your IP, so less valuable the ultimate exit might be. But we're not there to have bad decisions made for the sake of time. We want good decisions, good data, good engineering, and come out with a robust product.
So we typically do not co-invest. I mean, because if we make an investment, it's a one-off or a very special situation. It's not part of somebody's fund round.
So we do invest with VCs. We like to spread the risk around, and that if it's a project that's going to take time and a lot of money and there's a risk of failing, we look at it as the venture capital community is a way to help share that risk. In kind of an interesting juxtaposition with Bill here, in that we've over our philosophy's evolved a little bit in terms of our patience with companies. We don't have to raise our next fund, so to speak, and so we have. Sometimes my experience has been that some funds have an interest in keeping a company alive, even as a zombie, and dripping money into it, rather than saying, you know what, this isn't working. Let's cut bait here. And so we've become, I'd say, more aggressive or more brutal, candidly, about saying, you know what, this isn't working. We're not going to do a pivot. We're not going to support this company anymore. Convert us to common. We're done. But we do that. We've become more aggressive about doing that, and that's something I've started telling companies at the outset. You know, if you're making progress, the organization will support you. If you're not, we're going to lose internal support and the attention of the organization. And if it's not working, I'm not going to say keep it alive. Let's shoot.
I didn't mean to imply that, you know, any reason for delay is appropriate and acceptable from that perspective. We do require timelines and budgets and things like that to be met, but we know things happen, and these are high-risk propositions, and you know, there's often 3 or 4 different paths into the forks of the road, and you got to take one, and hopefully you pick the right one. So I just want to make sure I'm clear about that.
A nice Midwestern.
Yes.
JJDC or Johnson Johnson Development Corp. We work closely with VCs all the time. I mean, that's a standard approach to equity investing. And we like to see it. We like to think of it as a collaborative relationship where we share information and we share ideas. Even, you know, we may call up some venture folks that we've worked with and say, you know, what do you think about this? We're interested in investing here. I mean, we view the venture companies as partners, not so much as adversaries. We tend to work collaboratively with them on these deals. But of course, you know, obviously at some point, you know, we have to exit investments if they're not working. But more often than not, we tend to try to keep our commitments, possibly to a fault, but that's part of the sort of mantra of the way Johnson & Johnson does business.
And for Air Liquide, one of the premises we have actually making an investment is that we find it difficult to get approval to make an investment unless there is another investor with us. We were open to it being a financially driven investor or another strategic investor, but we do want to see that we're not the only ones that believe in the company. We're the only ones that are going to be left sort of there when there are difficult times, which does happen in this world. We can be what is called patient capital, but we're held to, sometimes we want to say we're strategic, we're not financial. Well, financial returns also matter. So time does matter to us as well. It probably is not the primary factor as it might be for a strictly financially driven venture capital. So I think we're pretty close to out of time. Thank you very much for your attendance. Feel free to contact any of us for additional discussion and questions. And have a good day.